Hi, this is Shocks. This is going to be a tutorial on the first mission of the StarCraft War Terran campaign, also known as First Strike. I've been running this campaign for about a year now, and one thing I've noticed is that while there is an RTS Speedrunners Discord, and I would recommend joining that, there's also a lot of people that will just run the game on their own. You can just look up StarCraft Speedrun on YouTube and find a large number of videos of people just doing the missions in their own way. And when I picked up this game, there's a lot of runs to use to build your run off of and to learn the route from, but there's not really any tutorials on like how to do certain levels or even certain tricks. So I'm making this to help people that may want to learn the game or learn the campaign, making it also for myself if I were to take a break and come back in the future. It'd be a good reminder on exactly why I do the things that I do in the run. And I mean, I suppose it's also for people that just really like StarCraft and like watching it. So what I'm going to be doing in this video, I'm just going to cover the first mission. I'm going to be going over the run from the current full campaign world record, which is currently 33:22, although I plan to get it lower than that. And after that, after I explain like why things are done the way they are, I'll do some of the tricks myself in the game to kind of walk you through them. The reason I'm using the run from the full campaign run rather than the individual level run is because for mission 1, the route doesn't really differ between safe strats and unsafe strats. You're doing the same thing regardless. So as I talk through this mission, I'm going to assume that if you're interested in running the game, you know like the objectives for each level and stuff, right? So just real quick, let's hop in the level. You're familiar, you're aware that your goal is to kill this command center, right? And to do that, you're going to take these 2 tanks. You're going to run them through Duran's base over here, our good friend Duran, through this back route to the back of their base and use them to kill the CC. You're going to do this regardless of whether you're doing the safe route. I mean, there's not really a safe route. Like, the strats are the same. It just depends on how safe you want to be, and I'll explain that as we go. So we're going to go ahead and look at the full campaign world record run. And obviously I'll pause and stuff. There's a lot going on here. I guess that's one thing that I'll talk about. I want to talk about 2 things, actually. One is that there's this misconception that to be, to get fast times in StarCraft speedrunning, you have to play with like 300 APM, and that's absolutely not true. I personally will spam a lot because I played multiplayer for a lot of years, and it's just part of my DNA at this point. I have to be doing something with my hands. But you can find countless fast times where people that play, I don't know what their APM would be, but you could play with 50 APM and get world record times. You do have to know how to use hotkeys, and you do have to know how to use screen location hotkeys. Those are crucial. If you don't use those, you're going to have a bad time. But as long as you're fast enough to get the things done that you need to do, you don't have to play like Flash to do that. Like, you can play much slower than I do in this video and be perfectly fine. The other thing that I wanted to cover is StarCraft speedrunning. At least from what I've noticed from my own runs, there's a lot of really subtle details that are easy to miss if you don't know what you're looking for. And that's why I'm making this video, to help explain those. One thing that I noticed, the way that I learned these levels is I would watch the speedrun, the current world record for them, and then I would run the level on my own, kind of trying my own things. And in some cases, I would improve the strat that already existed. And then in some cases, I would find why the strat that already existed was the way it was. And there's so many things, so many details that are easy to miss until you do the run yourself, play it again and again and again, and realize like, oh, this person did this really weird thing for a reason. So, and I suppose this goes for all games. So it's not like this is some brand new concept for StarCraft. So we're gonna go ahead and start this. So right off the bat, you're going to send this SCV out. Your goal is to get to Duran's base as quickly as possible, right? I found that 23 seconds is the fastest I can do it. We'll talk more about that in a second. This is one split that I do different than other people. So personally, I like mining with these SCVs. This is because of something much later in the mission that I'll talk about, but I like having as many minerals as possible. What you'll see with other runners is they'll simply take those SCVs with them and use them as buffer when they send their attack to the top. but this is another thing that I'll talk about. You also notice that I lifted the barracks right away, and I'm going to go ahead and land it. And I landed to the right of the machine shop. And the reason for that is at about 1 minute and 45 seconds into the mission, and you can see this in-game timer down here. If you're playing on Remastered, I would totally recommend having that on because it's just really convenient to see certain timings. For those who don't know, the way that the Brood War Terran, the way that the Brood War, not just Terran, but all the campaigns work, is they run on certain scripts. So the AI will send out attacks at very specific times, and it's dictated by the script. The script is just a big for loop, like a Python or C code. So it's deterministic in that way. Now, what the AI will attack is random. There's no way to really force that, but you know when their attacks are going to come, which is very helpful. So at about 1 minute and 45 seconds to do this mission, they're going to send out, I believe it's 4 Marines, and they can send it anywhere. But if they come to this bottom left base, then you know that they're going to attack the furthest right building. And at that time, you're going to be researching siege mode, so you don't want them to kill that machine shop. So you move the barracks to cover it up, right? So this SCV should never die. Again, there's some things that are deterministic, but what units you're going to encounter here are random. Sometimes these fire bats will block your way and you got to get around them. Sometimes they won't. It's just, that's StarCraft for you, and you're going to hear me talk about that a lot. So you can simply run this SCV by everything. I prefer killing these Marines with my tanks and my own Marines, and, making sure I don't lose any units. So this is the first time you're going to see dialogue or cutscene skipping in StarCraft, so let's talk about that. In StarCraft Vanilla, so anything pre-Brood War, you could skip any, I'm calling them dialogues or cutscenes. Like, it's during missions when, Raynor, Kerrigan, or Duran, or whoever just starts talking to someone. So pre-Brood War, you could just hit escape to skip that. Now, when Brood War came out, I think they wanted to make the game more cinematic. And obviously, they did a really good job with that because the story is a pretty big deal. That's why people love this game, or one of the reasons they do. But with that change, you can't just hit escape to skip stuff anymore. So what you have to do is anytime the audio file starts playing, you have to save the game and reload it. And what's unfortunate about this is there's 3 different types of cutscenes in the game. There's a type of cutscene where the game will center on a certain location and then play the audio files. If that happens, your game just freezes and you can't do anything. You can't even Alt F4 out of it. There's a type of cutscene where your game freezes but does not center on a location, so it centers wherever you are. You also can't Alt F4 out of this one. And there's a type of cutscene where the audio files start playing, but nothing else happens, so you can keep playing the game as usual. That one is definitely the most common and also by far the easiest one to skip. None of these are really complex once you learn how to do them, but it's very frustrating for new runners to know that they have to do this trick. I personally, look, you're trying to speedrun the game, you have to do whatever you can to get fast times, right? When I do this game for marathon runs, which I've done a couple, I personally like playing categories, or I'll choose a category where I don't do these skips, so I just call it any % Terran campaign, no dialogue skips, or something along those lines, because first of all, the story is really good, and a big reason people like this game. And also, I don't think this is particularly entertaining to watch as an observer. If you don't know anything about StarCraft, you're going to be wondering why people are menuing so much, I've noticed that myself. I'll get comments, for different levels that I've done, and people are like, why do you keep pressing these buttons? Why do you keep going to the menu? And it's I know it's not fun to watch, but, you got to do it. So we're going to see the first set of cutscene skips here. I'm going to let this play through, and then after I've shown the whole level, I'll demonstrate how to do this. So once you get to Duran's base, you need the 150 gas, right? That's your top priority, and he has the gas geyser on this map, the Vespene geyser. So you're going to build this refinery right away. Oh, and for the record, so that saves doing those skips saves about 1 minute and 10 seconds. So if you were to watch the whole cutscene, you're losing that much time, right? over the course of the whole Terran campaign, so all 8 levels, doing the dialogue or cutscene skips saves about 8 minutes and 30 seconds of time. So I hope that stresses how important it is to do this, because you're going to have to. Okay, so get the refinery right away. Oh, and one thing I'll say about this level is if you're looking to speedrun StarCraft Brood War, this is a really good level to pick up. It's really straightforward. It's, in my opinion, not that hard to get a good time. And it's really short. So, those are 3 really good reasons, right? So one thing you're going to see me do is also lift this barracks off. So we're going to be running past a lot of units in a bunker. And the way that it was done prior to me, I guess, and the way other people still do it, is they'll take their SCVs from the starting base, take their SCVs from this base, maybe, take the Marines that they get, maybe even build a couple more, and then run all those alongside the tanks. Personally, my philosophy, I suppose, is I like taking things into my own hands as much as possible and leaving as little to chance as possible. And I don't like knowing that my tanks could be targeted by the enemy units just randomly, and it could cost me the run, especially when it comes to marathon runs where dying is really bad. Like, I don't want to ever game over or have to restart in a marathon run. It happens, of course, but I want to limit that as much as possible. So you're going to see me land this barracks and move it up, which I've already done, and that will be very pertinent in a couple seconds. For now, I like going up to, I'm going to go up to 29 supply, and I also forgot to talk about this. So at the start of the mission, I built a vulture. I'm going to build 3 vultures. So where other people would build Marines, I like getting vultures. First of all, vultures have 75 HP, which is more than a Marine, so that's really nice. Vultures also 2-shot Marines, which is really, really nice, and they can be repaired. So those are 3 advantages they have over Marines. So when it comes to running all your units, buy all the enemy units and bunkers. In my opinion, vultures are just better. So I'm going to get 3 vultures. I'm going to rally the 3rd. So my build order here, you can track it yourself, right? Like, you can see what I'm doing in the run yourself, but so I don't know if I'm going to explain it unit by unit, but so we've already sent Duran up. We're going to get him to his spot as soon as possible. We want to cloak him earlier than later because we don't want him taking any free hits. We want to get 4 SCVs on this gas. I'm going to go up to 29 supply. Now, it's important to know at the start down here, there's like 2 Marines, and I fight those really early on with my tanks and Marines. It's micro that I don't really focus on, at least in this particular run, but it's possible to lose a Marine there. It's certainly not a game breaker. Like, it can happen. Just know if that happens, you're going to go up to 28 supply, not 29. Okay? So you want to get those 4 SCVs mining. 4 SCVs is optimal for that. Duran's route is pretty easy. I mean, I will say this level does have a lot of RNG in it regarding how many units are in this location. There's no way to manipulate it. You just have to pray for the best. Sometimes they can just stack it like they're like freaking Boxer or something and just have a million units there ready to kill you. But that's a very, very slim chance. So there is a turret like right below this this little area. So if you run kind of below this vulture, you will take free hits, but if you hug these depots up here, you're going to be pretty safe, which you will see me do. So this is going to be Duran's spot, right? That's going to block the choke if I can get him there, and block reinforcements from getting out. You want him to be right in the middle, so you could see the Goliath was interfering with my AI. But once I get him right in the middle, we're good to go for the most part. I'll talk more about that in a second. I do want to go back to Duran. So the AI in StarCraft is really weird. Duran can attack SCVs and he can attack buildings, and the AI could not care less. If Duran were to attack an enemy unit, say a Marine or a Vulture or Goliath, then he would get scanned and die. But if he only attacks SCVs and buildings, they could not care less. You're going to see me keep going back to Duran again and again and again, because once this command center gets to about 1300 HP, it starts at 1500, right? Once it gets to about 1300, they will pull an SCV and repair it. And SCVs repair, I don't know the exact number, I think it's about 10 health at a per second or something. It's something insane. SCVs are broken. And Duran's doing 25 damage per hit, but he's concussive damage, right? So he does a fourth of that to buildings, which is about, what, about 7 damage? A little less than that. So, you know, when you're doing 6.5 per hit and he attacks probably, I don't actually know what his attack rate is, maybe 1.5 per second or something like that. Any SCV repairing is just going to quickly undo what you've done. To get a really good IL time, you need Duran's damage to be maximized. You need to get siege as quickly as possible, and you need to get your tanks in position and sieged up as quickly as possible. Pretty straightforward, right? And that's why I think this level is a really good one to learn if you're trying to get into StarCraft World War speedrunning. Okay, so I want to get these units in position. My weight here is for 150 gas. Once I get 150 gas, I'm going to pull all my SCVs but one from this base. I'm going to pair them with my vultures, and then we're going to run all those units to the back of the base to meet up with Duran. I'm going to leave one SCV on gas here because I like having the ability to repair my my tanks. You need both gas and minerals to repair tanks. I still have those 3 SCVs in the main base mining minerals, so my mineral income is very steady. And 1 SCV on gas is more than enough for repairing tanks. So we get up to 150, and I'm going to pull all but 1. And we're just picking off units for the time being. And you're going to see me float this barracks in. So let's talk about bunkers in this game. Bunkers will attack on sight anything they see, okay? If they start attacking this barracks like this, they will solely focus on that barracks, unless a different unit comes in and attacks the bunker. If one of my Marines came in and attacked the bunker, it would get mowed down instantly. But if my Marine went up next to the bunker and just stood there, and the bunker was already preoccupied with the barracks, then my Marine would be completely safe, okay? This is very important to know. This makes this level much more deterministic than just running your units by and hoping for the best. So on top of that, you're going to see, I'm going to slow this down a little bit. And by the way, I'm sorry, I'm not a professional YouTube video maker or editor or anything like that. But I hope this gets the job done for anybody that wants to learn why this mission works the way it does. So you're going to see me grab all my units. I might have done this a little early. I'm not sure. Barracks is taking damage. So I grab my Marines and tanks. I right-click that depot. Okay? I right-click the depot. I also grab... Oh, gosh. And while this is all happening, they start to freaking repair their command center. So I got to shoo that away with Duran. Now, if you see this happen, which it obviously will, just attacking the SCV once with Duran is enough to shoo it away. That's all you got to do. So I also grabbed my vultures and SCVs and also right-clicked that bunker. Or sorry, that supply depot. One thing I also want to talk... Okay, well, let me explain why I'm doing that first. So if you've played StarCraft before, and... Well, if you've played StarCraft before, like competitively... You know, like, you don't just right-click buildings, right, all the way across the map. It's like a newbie move, right? You don't do that. But the reason I do this here is because tanks are very special. Tanks are very broken units. I'm going to be repeating that phrase a lot because it's true. Terran is freaking insane. Tanks can actually just randomly target stuff while moving because they have that moving turret on the top. And if, like I said earlier, if you were to attack that bunker with a tank, even if you don't intentionally target it, if the tank just decides to target the bunker, it will start shooting back at you, and you don't want that. On top of that, you see these turrets over here. If the tank just decides to target those, then you're in trouble. It's not a hard loss or anything like that, but anytime you target a building over here, you have a chance of drawing units from the base, the main base over here. So you want to limit that as much as possible, right? So by manually clicking that depot, if you manually attack a certain building, no matter where it is, the tank will solely focus on that building and ignore everything else, which is what you want. So I have all of my units focused on attacking only that building, okay? Let's talk about one more thing. I'm going to back up a second. I'm talking about hotkeys, okay? I'm going to explain why I'm not going to do this. So you might be like, you know, I said at the start of the video to use hotkeys. Tell me what your hotkeys are. Okay, I want to copy your hotkeys. But if you're doing StarCraft speedruns or playing StarCraft at all, you should not just blindly copy someone's hotkeys. You should use your own. I'm going to tell you my control groups for all these units, okay? So I have these 2 tanks and 5 marines, and I have 3 vultures and I believe it's 9 SCVs over here, 8 or 9 SCVs. So I have all these units on 1. I have my my vultures and SCVs on 2. I have my barracks on 3 until I get it to this position, and then I move my tanks to 3, so only my tanks on 3. I don't even have anything on 4. I have Duran on 5, and I have my 3 vultures on 6. And that's how I micro things. And like no sane person uses that hotkey setup. So if you're saner than me, which you probably are, you're going to find something that works for you. So that's why I'm not going to just talk about my hotkeys. This is the last time I'm going to tell you how I hotkey certain things, because I would never recommend following that. But in any event, do hotkey stuff. You're going to have to if you want to get good times. Okay, so we're going to go back to where we were. So we're running these units up, right? You want to be a little careful of these 2 turrets. I don't plan on Carbot graphics for this run at least, so it's a little hard to tell, but it's possible for your tanks to go into this little choke right here, but they can't go all the way through. They're going to get stuck like right here, and that's very unfortunate. So you have to keep an eye and manually micro your units and stuff like that. Okay, we're going to go back up to normal speed. And yeah, I mean, we're just running by, right? So we're going to pull units with us. AI in StarCraft is freaking weird. Like, the enemy in the campaign will see a certain unit and just target it forever. It's even weirder when you play the old patches, and they've changed how the AI works over time. So just one thing to keep in mind. But like a multiplayer match, the enemy is not just going to chase probably this Marine or this Vulture, since they're the first units by. Okay, so once you get to this spot, you want to start taking the fight, right? You're far enough away from these buildings, and you can start picking off whatever units are up here. Your tanks, obviously, you want to keep them alive. I mean, this comes down to micro, right? The more you play, the better you're going to be at this. There's not much to explain here, and my micro probably is bad in this run. I remember this run not being that good, but it was good enough to continue. And yeah, notice how I attack this turret on accident and I draw Firebat. Like, this is not pretty. But it gets the job done, okay? So you want to get these tanks sieged up. So, oh, I'm sorry. I said earlier I didn't have anything on 4. My machine shop is actually on 4. So that's how I check status for siege. And I'm just waiting for that to get done. I want to get these tanks set up. I mean, look, it's a speedrun, right? Like, it's common sense. You want to get your tanks ready to be sieged before siege is done, so you can siege right away. I don't have to explain that to anybody. And then we just target down the CC, and make sure our tanks don't die. Make sure Duran shoos away any SCV that repairs, and we are good to go. Now, as far as safe versus unsafe, there's a couple things to that. So if you're doing a marathon run, or you're like learning the single campaign run, you just don't want to keep starting over. You do want to take your time to kill any units that are an imminent threat before you siege up. One thing that's also really nice is Duran does have lockdown for 100 energy. Using it obviously means you got to beat this level faster, right? Because it takes away almost half of his energy, but it is good to have. These dropships I drew, I'm going to explain how the dropships work in a little bit, but just know, I want to show my units again. I don't know if I ever do. Let me go back. So this vulture being over here is a problem. I know it sounds freaking bizarre, because it is, and StarCraft is really dumb. This vulture being in this spot causes dropships to get loaded up. I know that's insane, and I will demonstrate that in a couple seconds after I'm done showing this level, okay? But in general, you want to avoid going basically like any further left from like this spot on. And it's the most insane thing. So we're about to kill the command center. This is going to be the second dialogue skip of the level. Earlier I said there's 3 types. The first one was a type of dialogue skip that centers your screen. and then plays the audio files. This one simply just locks your screen. So you're going to see me skip it. I will also explain that one in a bit because it's easier to do than talk about. And yeah, we skip the dialogue and we beat the level. And that's mission 1. Pretty simple, right? Everybody got that? We're ready to move on to the next one? Okay, so let me explain some stuff. Let's talk about the dialogue skips first. So I'm playing on an American or on an English keyboard. Your hotkeys are going to be different if you play on any other language. I don't know exactly what the buttons are, but like for me, if I want to save the game, I can do F10, S, enter, enter. If I want to load the game, I can do F10, L, L. I can also save by doing Alt, SS, enter. I can also load the game by doing Alt, L, L. And shoot. Let me do all that again, because I realized I didn't have this the right screen on. Okay, so let me try this again. So yeah, English keyboard. So I have S for save, L for load. So if I want to save the game quickly, I can do F10, S, enter, enter. If I want to load the game quickly, I can do F10, L, enter. If I want to save the game quick, I can do Alt, S, S, O. If I want to load the game quick, I can do Alt, L, L. Okay? People that have played multiplayer are very familiar with using Alt because one quick way to get out of the game is Alt QQ. You can also do F10 EQQ, but that's just the way, right? Who wants to do that? So I said earlier, right at the start of this mission, you have a dialogue skip, right? Basically, the way it works, and one thing I will say, if you are interested in learning these levels, you can go on speedrun.com, go to the resources tab for StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War. They have all these missions in campaign form, so you can see exactly where the triggers are that do certain things. So, start of the mission, you want to meet Duran. Duran's trigger location is about like this. So once you get to here, you are going to activate the cutscene, okay? So for this cutscene, it's one that centers, right? So as long as you're far away from the screen centering, the further away you are, the safer you are. So at the start of the run, I hotkey this location to F2. So I use Shift F2, right? And anywhere I go, if I hit F2, I go back here. So I'm gonna send this SCV out like I normally would. So obviously, if you're doing this at the start of the level, running diagonal is the best. Because you go further faster, right? So I'm gonna get close to where he's gonna be, and I'm gonna hit F2, okay? And as the screen starts moving, I'm looking at the mini-map on the top, at the bottom left. I'm gonna pause the game. I'm gonna quickly save using F10, S, enter, enter. And then I'm gonna quickly load using F10, LL. During this black screen, this is so much to explain. The way StarCraft works is you can buffer inputs while the game is loading. So during the black screen, I hit F10. And by doing that, I'm guaranteed that F10 is gonna get pushed before anything else happens. The next thing that's gonna happen is the audio files are gonna start playing and the game's gonna freeze on me. However, if I save the game,
I am Lieutenant Samir Duran of the Confederate Resistance.
Well, if you do it wrong, this is what happens.
I've been monitoring your attack against the Dominion, and I'd like to offer you my services and skills in return for amnesty.
This is embarrassing.
Lieutenant, you have absolutely no idea.
But this is a good example of why you need to learn how to do this skip, okay?
Why do you wish to side?
Because if you don't do it right, you're gonna get stuck in this cutscene. You cannot auto 4 out of it. You can't hit F10 or do anything. You can even hit enter to type. So you're in a pretty bad spot. So learn how to do this trick. Doing it slow for me is weird. So like I'm not used to like slowing it down and explaining it. So I think that's why I actually messed it up. But it is very consistent if you do it correctly, which we're gonna do this time. Okay, so like I said all along, I was going to explain how to not do it first. Now that we've covered that, we're going to restart the level, F10ERR. Send this SCV out. So this is how a run would normally start, right? So, here's what I'm going to do in order. When the screen starts moving, indicating that I've entered Duran's trigger location, I'm going to pause the game, save it, and reload it. As the game loads, I'm going to hit F10. So before the game's loaded, I'm going to buffer the F10 input. I'm going to save it right away, and then load right away again. I'm going to keep doing this for each audio file that's going to play, which I believe is 5 for this first cutscene. And then once we're done there, once we've skipped all of them, we can continue as normal. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. So we're going to do the first one. Screen location over here. Get close to Duran. Skip all the cutscenes, or skip all the dialogue, audio files, what have you. That's all of them, and then we would build the refinery and continue the level as normal, right? I'm going to show you a slightly different way that is a little bit easier, because one thing that I don't like about this, I don't know. I don't like this trick in general. You just have to live with it, right? Because it's faster. But I don't like being all over the keyboard, like pulling my my mouse hand off the mouse to hit F10. I don't like that. So another way to do this is, like I said earlier, you can save with Alt-SO, Alt-LL, save and reload with those 2. So you can actually do that after the first 2 F10 presses. So you can, let me restate, you can do that after the first 2 save and loads. So I will demonstrate that now. This is probably more pertinent for the third type of dialogue skip, which is where audio is playing during the mission, but it doesn't freeze your game or anything like that. But this is still good to know, because I'm going to cover all these levels over time, and you'll see me doing this more often than not. So save the screen location, get close to Duran, save and load, buffer the input, save and load, and then from here on out, we can just do Alt-SO, Alt-LL. And see how much easier this is than hitting F10? Much easier, right? And that's how you do dialogue skips. That covers the screen moving to a certain location, centering on it, and then locking your game. So I talked about multiple things here. We're going to cover another part of the run that I talked about earlier, which is, let's talk about one thing that I didn't explicitly talk about during the run. Let's say you get to this spot. You're behind their base, you have Duran in position, you have your tanks ready to siege. So I said earlier in the mission, I like keeping 3 SCVs mining minerals at the bottom left. Usually at this point in the level, I'll have about 200 minerals, which is perfect. Because, for those of you who have played multiplayer, you know that Terran, Protoss, and Zerg nowadays can all wall off expansions and whatnot. So you can build 2 depots like this. You're gonna see. I messed it up. Thanks. This is the worst tutorial ever, man. It's like this. So if you build the wall like this is completely marine proof, SCV proof, everything. So these units that might flank you from behind cannot get to you. They have to kill these depots first. But the depots being present generally bugs them out. So if you're doing this run for like a marathon, or if you just want to be safe, because the thing is, you can easily do this during an IL run just to be really safe. Like, you don't have to, at least for this level, you can do the safest strats possible while also being as fast as possible. That's not always the case for most levels, but for this level it is. So we'll show it again. Go here. Go here. Didn't mess it up this time, props to me. So just a really good wall to know. Again, it's marine proof, it's Goliath proof, it's SCV proof, it's vulture proof. So really good wall to know. Let's talk about the dropships. So I was saying earlier how triggering these dropships that were dropping on top of me during the run you last saw, like I had to lock down one of them, right?
How can I be of service?
Is something that I'm doing on my own. It is not RNG. So let's say I siege these tanks, right? They could not care less about anything. Like, they're trying to get through, but they can't. Say I move this marine over here and just randomly target this depot. See these dropships come into action? And then immediately drop me? Look, I don't know why it works this way, okay? But it does, and there's gonna be a lot of stuff that I can't explain. Like, there's nothing in the script that dictates why it works this way. It's not even like there's a specific location in the campaign editor that you can point to and be like, oh yeah, if units come here, drop on top of them. There's nothing like that. It just works that way, and that's StarCraft Brood War, and you gotta live with it. So that's why I'm making these videos, in the hopes that if someone were to ever run into this, it helps them out. I'll demonstrate this one more time. It's actually pretty funny to me because I ran this game at ESA Winter 23 pretty recently, and I accidentally left a unit, like it roamed free to the left, and I got dropped, and it made the level. It was a very climactic ending, and I would totally recommend watching that. So we're gonna hit this thing 5 times. And then we're going to move the Marine. I just want to showcase that it all has to do with units coming over here, okay? Move and target the depot. There's the dropships. So, like, it's crazy. I know. It's very stupid. Let's talk about Duran's positioning. This game is so weird. Okay, so Duran needs to be in the middle, right? Now he can be far away like this, or he can be closer like this. It's kind of hard to showcase because of how random this is, okay? But you noticed last run, let's say I siege up and target the depot here, okay? If I'm far away like this, if Marines were in the front here, they could actually get through this little choke and get to these tanks. And you might be like, well, why would you want that? The reason is if Duran is closer like this, Marines cannot get through. But see, this is perfect. He can get glitched like this. The presence of the SCVs allows all these units to get balled up and glitch. And if he gets glitched enough, he can get moved to the right into the turret, into the range of the turret, and then die. So this is another thing to be worried about, okay? So if he's closer to the back of the minerals, like this, the risk of that is a lot less. Like, he's less likely to get grabbed with all the other units. Because the SCVs, you know, they don't mine from here. They don't mine like up here. They mine over here. So he's safer in that regard. But if Marines are in the front, then they can get to him. So it's kind of choose your poison, I suppose. It's like, if you're playing it safe, you'll probably want to be closer to the back, even knowing Marines can get through. And see how silly this game is? See how units can just glitch through these minerals like they all are? Like, it's...
Excellent, Lieutenant.
So I will say it again, I think this is a really good first mission to speedrun, to learn the game and see if it's something you're interested in. But just know there's a lot of crap like that in Brood War. Let's talk about the end of the level. So you've killed the command center, you have one last dialogue skip, right? You see that I just missed it, right? I didn't even try. So this is a type of dialogue. This is a cutscene, wherever you want to call it, where the game freezes but does not center on a location. To do this skip, you're going to hold the menu button when the CC dies, and then you'll be able to just save and load. And for this one, you're going to do it twice, because there's 2 pieces of dialogue. Okay? So let me showcase this. So we're going to see the tanks. I apologize, this is really boring to watch. Important reminder that during this part, you want to always be looking for repairing SCVs because they will repair on you and recover a lot. Like this guy's trying to repair. What a jerk. Okay, I'm gonna save here. So again, I see the the command center is one shot. I'm gonna hold menu button.
Mission successful, Admiral.
So I held the menu button when the command center was destroyed, and the cutscene started. It automatically prompted the menu for me. Okay, and then I was able to just save and load, come back, save and load, because there's 2 dialogues to skip through. I'm gonna do it one more time. And I promise, if if you learn this and start doing it, it's really easy to do. It's intimidating to see because it's a lot of inputs, a lot of menuing flying by, but it is really, really trivial. And I know I say that having missed the first one today, but I was also trying to do that really slow, so it was a little different for me. I haven't missed one of these in a long time. Okay, so I'm gonna hold the menu button. CC's about to die. Hold the menu button. I just let go of my mouse once the dialogue starts playing, and it automatically prompts the menu for me, and I can save and load. The first audio file actually, that's pretty funny actually. I've never seen that happen. So, okay, so Duran died after the cutscene finished, but since I'd already met the conditions for victory, it was considered a win, even though Duran's dead. And honestly, you got to think about the ramifications of this. Like, if Duran dies in Mission 1, the story completely changes, right? Like, Zukov and Dougal are still friends to this day. They've probably conquered the Zerg and taken over Tarsonis and the Side Disruptor and all that. So, honestly, the story of StarCraft, Brood War, and I guess probably StarCraft 2 have changed forever from this. But anyway, I'll do this one more time. So, the dialogue is going to start playing. I am going to let go of my mouse when it does, as in let go of the mouse button. It'll prompt the menu for me. I'll save quickly, load quickly, just skip the first line of dialogue, and then save and load again to skip the second, and then we're good to go. So let's do this one more time. I hope I'm explaining this well. If anybody does watch this and like doesn't understand, I'm always happy to explain it again. Hopefully this is sufficient for anybody learning this game. Yeah, I should have created a save closer to the death of the CC, so we don't have to watch this every time. But this is a good example of how freaking just weird this behavior is.
Your forces are under attack.
Regarding all the units clumping and all that. Alright, so we're gonna hold the menu. Dialogue starts, save and load. Save and load. And that's it. So that's mission 1. I believe I've explained everything of importance. Again, experiment, do your own things. If you want to like know the exact build, you obviously can just watch it directly and see the order in which I build things. But I think that's all I wanted to cover. I do want to do these for every single mission, just because, like, look, I don't really care about views. I just hope this is helpful to someone, and even if it's not, I think down the road, if I like forget why I was doing something, it's going to be really helpful to me. If I like were to take a break and come back, it'd be really helpful to me to remember, because it's really easy to forget all the small things you have to do. This level is really straightforward, to be honest. So later missions like 3 and 8 and 4, 7, I mean, basically every later mission is a lot more complex than this, to be quite honest. So there's going to be a lot more to explain. My plan initially was to just make a video for the whole campaign, and then as I started to think about it, I realized that would probably take like 4 or 5 hours at least to explain everything I wanted to explain. So I'm just going to break it up per level, and yeah, I hope this is helpful to someone. Thank you for watching.